So this was interesting to me, but I still needed to understand what it was about these things that made them so joyful. I had pictures of them pinned up on my studio wall, and every day I would come in and look at them and try to make sense of it. And then one day something just clicked. I saw all these patterns, so round things. There we go, round things. Pops of bright color. Symmetrical shapes and repeating patterns. A sense of abundance and multiplicity. A feeling of lightness or elevation. When I looked at it this way, I realized that yes, the feeling of joy is mysterious and elusive, but we can actually access it through tangible physical attributes, or what designers like me call aesthetics. And that word, I think, often has lofty connotations. It's associated with art and associated with beauty, but in fact, the root of that word is the same root as the Greek word asthenome, which means I feel, I sense, I perceive. What these patterns were telling me is that joy begins with the senses. And so I started calling them aesthetics of joy, the sensations of joy. And I gave them names that related to the kind of joy that they seemed to elicit. And I found more of them. So for example, freedom, the joy we find in nature, wildness and open space. Magic, the joy we find in things we can't quite pin down, like the light shattered through a prism into a rainbow, or the way the northern lights move overhead, the winking of a firefly in the darkness. Surprise, the aesthetic of contrast and the unexpected. Celebration, of course, what happens in a moment of intense joy. If your team's winning, for example, you throw your arms up, we burst open. That feeling of radiating that some of you talked about is really on display in this aesthetic of celebration. We see it when we dance, we see it when we celebrate, and we often see radiating shapes as part of celebrations around the world. And renewal, the aesthetic of blossoming and growth and potential. Altogether, I identified 10 of these aesthetics of joy, and they became like a set of triggers that I could understand. I could look out at the world around me and notice these things and notice the effect that they had on me and on other people. And in the wake of this, I noticed something, that as I walked around, I started seeing little moments of joy everywhere I went. It was like I had a pair of rose-colored glasses, or like a secret decoder ring for joy. And now that I knew what it looked like, I was seeing joy everywhere. It was like hiding in plain sight. So I started calling this joy spotting, and I put a hashtag on it, partially because I guess that's what you do these days, but partially because it was an invitation to share it with other people. This became a kind of mindfulness practice for me, and I wanted to share it with others and allow others to share what they were finding that was joyful. And I've heard from people who do this, families who do it in the car on the ride to school, or people who do it along their commute, as a way to reconnect to your surroundings and recognize that anywhere you are in a given moment, you can find something that can lift your spirits.